Hello and welcome to Solace Show. Today is April the 2nd, day after Easter and Passover. And today I am your host, Dr. Robin Donaldson, licensed clinical psychologist, certified yoga instructor, and widow among many other labels. And with me today I have Amy Matthews. And I'm going to let Amy talk about what she does and all the fabulous reasons that she is on the show today.
Thank you. That was a very nice welcome, Robin. I appreciate it.
Of course.
As Robin said, I'm Amy Matthews. I am called the HR Lady. I work for a company called Nevada Association of Employers, and we help businesses navigate HR and keep it a little bit less scary. And one thing that has come up in conversations with Robin since the time I have known her is how do people handle grief in the workplace? And that's what we're here today to discuss.
Absolutely. Yep. You were one of the people that recommended that we talk about grief in the workplace on the show particularly. And I knew that you would be the person that, hey, have a recommendation? Why don't you come on the show then? And we can talk about it.
Here we are.
Right?
Here we are.
Absolutely. So what is your awareness? We'll just jump right in. What is your awareness so far of how businesses deal with employees that are grieving? Kind of what's the status quo?
It's like the elephant in the room. It's a great there, not there. It's something that has to be addressed, but many people, it's grief and it's death, and for some folks that can be so dark and scary.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't know what to do. And businesses, they have a double whammy because they have to run their business, but they also care about their people. Mm-hmm. So where in that balance does it lie to care for the people who have had a death in their family and need to take time off work? And I was thinking a lot about it coming into the show today.
Sure.
And I realized it's like anything else in business. You have to be prepared for these things that can happen. So if a person is going to be gone at work for any reason, but today we're talking about grief. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what happens in the small businesses, if you don't have someone else to do the work while the person is out, you're stuck.
Right.
And that will force an employer to be unable in some ways or unwilling to give the time off, even though they may want to. So I think it's a work practice that businesses should think about and have a backup plan and cross-train so that if someone is gone, your business isn't shut down. If that's the case, you're doing it wrong. Right. And in the case of grieving, I have an example, actually.
Please.
So on October 2nd, 2017, and here in Vegas, we all know that was a pretty ugly, 24 hours right there. And I had several appointments on the 2nd. We signed up members through our association, and I had one that morning, and I wanted to know if she would like to cancel. And she said, "Nope, I'm here. I appreciate you asking, but come on in."
Okay.
Well, 5 minutes before I walked into the door, the HR manager of the company I was meeting with had a call. And one of her part-time employees, and by part-time I mean 15, 20 hours a week tops.
Okay.
Her father called and told the HR manager that her boyfriend had been killed the night before.
Oh my
and
gosh.
That she would not be in.
Wow.
So I walk in and she said, "I'm so glad you're here because I have a situation. I have this part-time person who qualifies for none of our benefits." And in case, you're the people watching here don't know, it is a benefit to have time off from an employee. It's nothing that's required. If your employer is giving you time off, that's a benefit, whether it's bereavement, vacation, or anything else. And as a part-time worker in this particular company, this gal was not eligible for anything.
Oh, wow.
But this business wanted to do the right thing. So we sat down and we talked through it and what that would look like and how to address it and talk to her and what we needed to do. So what this employer decided to do is they gave her unlimited time off for whatever she needed. It was unpaid, because she didn't qualify for, earning any paid time off.
Sure.
And that was their resolution. And she ended up taking, if I recall, about 4 weeks before she could come back into the space. But again, back to the preparation, she was part-time. They have other workers that could fill that spot. So that made it a little bit easier. I have another friend who she owns her own business. She lost her husband on a Saturday. And she had 5 clients coming on Monday morning. And she canceled all of them. And she basically lost all of her revenue for the next 3 to 4 weeks that it took her time to, mourn the loss of her husband of 30 years.
Wow.
And there's nothing in place for that either. We just don't have a good system here for any of that. So there's a pretty large scope to it, I think, all the way around.
And I think that when preparing, I'm just thinking, having your own company, preparing for any type of situation that may come up. I mean, we definitely hope that nobody in our family or close network of friends is going to die. However, that's just the reality in day to day. But that's often not something that we talk about insurance, we talk about licensing, we talk about a bunch of things, but we don't talk about how to prepare for these types of devastating events, life events that can happen. So exactly. I like the idea of there being something structured, something that, a form, a piece of paper to get you thinking about, okay, if this horrible thing happened, how am I going to make it through the next 4 weeks? Correct. Or, similar to things like life insurance or disability, who knows what can happen, and being prepared is the number one key.
Most of it. You have to have a game plan. You really do. It's you could think of it like insurance. Insurance is something we purchase on the possibility that something may happen, and if it does, great, you have what you need.
Right.
So having a set plan in place for your business, whether you're self-employed, or knowing exactly what your policies are for your employees, if there is a situation where you have someone who has to be out due to the loss of a family member, then you know how to handle it. You know how much time, what there will be paid or not paid, and then you can proceed accordingly. It helps, having a plan helps take the emotion out of things, and it's necessary.
I would offer that it
helps to navigate around the emotion. I was speaking for the person, not for the person who had the loss, but for the people who have to help that person.
Well, right, because the emotion, when you hear about somebody's grief, or that somebody is in grief because they've lost a loved one, you can have the deer in the headlights feeling well, I don't know what to do, and oh my gosh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, all the things that people who are trying to support those in grief experience. And then you add the business layer on top of it, it can get extremely dicey. And so if you have something that you feel good about on the emotional side of being able to support these employees, and knowing that it's going to help support the employees, then the worry is taken away, those types of emotions, and you can rely on the policy so that as an employer or as a colleague, you can then be able to support that person on the more emotional level. So it's a different type of emotional level, I would imagine.
Exactly. That makes sense. More of a navigation assist.
So how many companies would you say have adequate berebment policies?
Oh, none of them.
Oh, okay.
None of them.
Great. Yeah.
That's pretty easy.
So
that's
a lot of work
easy
needs
answer.
to be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there typically what I see when I write a handbook or review handbooks with people, 3 days. You get 3 days. That's it. And I'll tell you right now, it's not enough.
Oh, I can tell you that's not enough.
3 days just isn't going to cut it.
No.
What employers also do is they say, well, if you have 3 weeks vacation, you can take your vacation in addition to the bereavement leave. That might be enough, depending on how you're wired, what your relationship was, but everybody handles grief differently.
Right.
And there's just no way to know. So there are some interesting things going on at the federal level right now. There's an act called FMLA, which is required leave. You have to qualify.
Family Medical Leave Act.
Family Medical Leave Act, exactly. And you have to qualify for this as a company. You have to have 50 employees. You have to have worked with a company for 12 months. There's a lot of different things that come into play there.
Okay.
And it allows people up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave, and it will hold your job while you care for a sick family member. And there's also a sideline of that for military that you get the same time. However, when the death occurs, it's over. There's no more FMLA. So they've been working on something for a very long time, over a decade in the legislature, for FMLA that would extend, and they're starting with this: if you lose a child, that FMLA should include 12 weeks of bereavement time. Could be paid or unpaid, but you have that time and you get to keep your job. And then 2017, they started putting this together again, and it'll be out in front of the policymakers in the next couple years. Now, historically, it's been shot down every time. I don't understand.
Do you have an understanding of why?
As a person, just, human being walking the planet, no,
Sure.
I don't get it.
Okay.
But as someone who works with businesses, I do. Because what happens is 12 weeks without a vital person in your organization can be devastating.
Sure.
So even for the employer that really cares about their people and they have everything all set up, if you're the chief cook and bottle washer and you're going to be gone for 12 weeks, if that employer doesn't have a plan, it's stressful. And then they think, if I have to pay, if you have the paid leave to take, then they're paying you for being gone. They're paying a person to take your place, and it becomes business, and then it's too expensive. And in some cases, employers who aren't as caring maybe as they should be, they don't care. They don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Get back in here and go to work. I see it all the time. People who, I've actually had employers say, well, that was just your cousin, you can't take time off for that, or that was just your aunt. And I have employers ask me all the time, well, because what typically happens is bereavement leave is a separate leave from vacation time. So what we see in the handbooks is bereavement leave, you have up to 3 paid days outside of vacation for members of your immediate family. And then some people will say, okay, but immediate family, that's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, spouse,
Their definitions,
child,
right?
and that's it. Well, what if my aunt raised me?
Right.
And my aunt passes away? Can I still take bereavement leave? Nope. Sorry, that's the policy. So I think the best thing for employers to do is to be willing to think outside the box, take each situation individually around the policy, and give your worker what they need. Because if they're a good worker and you want to keep them and you're giving the benefits anyway, the best thing you can do is provide the support, at that level, so that they can take the time without being in fear. Because imagine you've just lost somebody very special to you, you're dealing with that, and you have this job, and so up here in your cloud, it's like, I need my income, I still need to work, but I can't work because I can't even think straight, I don't even know what day it is.
Right.
You can find yourself in a very uncomfortable space. And employers, I think, should be educated on what, where, how, who, when, to assist their workplace and their worker with navigating the waters of that time. It can be very difficult.
And it makes me think of how helpful an HR department can be, because I'm imagining that somebody that is in grief, that is dealing with all these bits and pieces, they don't have, like you said, the wherewithal. They can rush back into work and then be afraid that they're going to lose their job because they are not functioning in a capacity that they were able to prior to the death. And so working with folks in HR, they can discuss the fact, okay, no, you aren't thinking correctly. Let's figure out how we can make this work, being flexible. The other piece that a lot of this sounds like the upfront part. Yes,
Right.
FMLA for example, if a family member is sick and you're taking care of them, but yeah, they do pass away. And I don't know of too many situations, I haven't heard of many, where you can get your loved one embalmed, buried, and a funeral within 3 days. I don't know if it's out there. Let me know. But no, it just doesn't happen that way. And so it's an unrealistic set. And I think that there is this expectation that people will then take their FMLA, or they will take their sick time, their vacation time. However, there's more and more evidence suggesting that grief doesn't, hit you within the first month or the first couple of months. It will hit you at different times, different grief bursts that they talk about.
Yes, very true. Unexpected and
I feel the tension. I would imagine that businesses don't know how to address that, and they don't want employees necessarily taking advantage.
Correct.
So
and
it's
it
a tough spot.
Yeah, and I think it should begin or continue, depending on the case, with education. We need to educate the HR departments or the business owners for the smaller companies on what to do and how to handle it. Larger companies that offer medical benefits may have something called an employee assistance program. It's also called an EAP.
Right.
And that's a place where you can refer a grieving employee to get counseling or therapy or whatever they may need. And that's a great resource if you have it. So I think it would be helpful in the HR world to have resources available, counseling, therapy sessions, the yoga. After 1 October, we had a plethora of places that are here suddenly in the spotlight. And those resources are available all the time. And I think if we can bring an awareness of that into the workplace, it will give us the facts and knowledge that we need to better help the people that are working with us. It's just, the thing in business is you want everybody to be focused and busy and productive and affecting your bottom line. And even 6 months out, 2 years out,
Right.
if it happens, the best way, is to support that person in whatever capacity you're able, without also, threatening how the business runs.
Right. In the ideal world, the employee would feel safe enough to be able to go to their boss or go to an HR representative and say, this is the 3rd-year anniversary of my child's death. I'm having a hard time. I need to take a day out, not just a sick day, because I think that there is still this fear that if you tell your boss or if you tell somebody in the company that they're going to look at you as though you're not mentally fit, that you're incapable of doing your job. And I like the idea of educating so that we can reduce that stigma, so that we can say, well, no, you're a human being. Of course you're going to have a hard time around this particular date.
Exactly.
And the more communication, the better. And not every company is set up that way.
No, they're not, unfortunately.
Right.
And, the good news is a lot of them are willing to look at it. And like I said, with the handbooks and the things that I'm seeing these days, I am beginning, in certain cases, to be asked the question, do you think this is enough? Because it's in addition to. So, for example, in a company that gives you 3 weeks of paid vacation, they're giving you 3 weeks of paid vacation and 3 days for bereavement. So, that's 18 days in a year. And they think, oh my gosh, 18 days. And, you do the math and you book these things as a liability on your accounting. And a lot of people don't know that. But everything that you pay for vacation, that's an expense liability. So sometimes owners see these and they think, oh,
Sure.
But the reality is it's necessary. And I'm sure through, just education and good policies and planning for these things, then you can keep it on your books as a potential expense liability. And if it doesn't, then, it comes back in. And that's okay. It's a real thing. And you're very right about the stigma of it.
Right.
People are afraid.
Right.
I've worked with people who have lost their spouse, their child, and when they do come back, and then there's like a reentry process,
Right.
almost,
Right, of
and
course.
you have to navigate through that. And I'm feeling so sad today. I have to go home. Go home.
Right.
Bye. Go home.
Yeah.
What can we do, to help you? How can we make you feel comfortable now that you're back? And do you need an extra break? Do you need a half a day? How can we assist?
That flexibility that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. When you get back to work, employees that knew about your loss, they're going to be talking to you about this. Well, guess what? That's a trigger. That is something that makes it, as well-meaning as all of that is, then the person that, just was able to get up that day, put themselves together to go to work, is now talking all about their grief. And that is challenging.
Right.
But we don't think about that as being challenging.
Right.
It's
Correct.
everybody is trying to support the person, but that could be why they need to take a half day.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of being flexible depending on what the person does for a living and as part of the company.
Yep.
Because, maybe they could work from home for a little bit. Maybe, like you said, the half days or the multiple breaks, there's more than one way of...
Job shares.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things. There really are. There's a lot of ways again, depending on the position, that we can be flexible in the workplace for that. And, again, it's death and grief has such a big stigma attached to it. We know exactly how to plan a maternity leave. We know how to welcome people back from their honeymoon or after the birth of a baby.
Yeah.
How do you make your workplace another safe haven for someone who's coming back from grieving?
Right.
What do you do? We have people come in on their birthday and there's balloons and cards and things.
Sure.
Coming back after going through something like that, your sense of reality is very skewed. And it's very difficult to just go from the space of learning to just breathe again to now here I am with tasks and jobs and I have to do this. So it would be good to provide some education on a reentry process for grieving as well. I would like to see that.
Yeah. Have you started putting together some type of policies and examples and things like that?
We do have a few because of the company that I walked into on October 2nd. I helped them draft something new because they didn't have anything, and there's a big fear in HR, we're setting precedent, we have to be careful.
Right.
But along with that, handbooks are fluid, policies are fluid.
Yes.
You can change them, you notify everybody, and we did work on that so that they did have some recourse for everybody, whether they were part-time or full-time, because your work status has nothing to do with what level of grief you may expect. So yeah, there is a little bit of a movement there, and there's a lot going on. There's an organization called, we call it SHRM, but it's Society for Human Resource Management. And I've been seeing a lot of chatter just in the past year about bereavement policies and grieving at work and how to get through that. So it's front and center. Well, maybe it's to the side and front, or if it's not exactly a priority, but it's out there. It's getting talked about, and a lot of companies, I don't remember who, so I won't say it, but there was a very large, I want to think like Microsoft scale or Amazon, and the CEO lost his wife, and he realized at that time that his bereavement policy was horrible, and he just changed it right then and there, unlimited, paid up to a certain extent, and they went in and updated everything, and that's great. Now, that said, they can afford it.
Right.
This is a Fortune 10 company, right, if there is such a thing. But, smaller scales, and figure it out. Retaining a good workforce is in offering these benefits, and it is about being supportive in all the ways that you possibly can be. It's an even flow. You're getting your productivity from your worker, and they have that sense of security. I'm coming back. I'm going to be supportive. If I need some time, I can take it, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, it's a retention. Yes, you're going to keep the person with the company, and chances are they've been with the company for a very long time, and so they want to stay. And they're going through a really tough part. Death is part of life. So even though we're excited with the new baby situation, with the weddings, different life celebrations, death celebration and or honoring is still a very important part, just like everything else.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I like the idea that models are in development, that the HR companies are working on this. What if somebody wanted to pick your brain about it? How would they get in touch with you?
I can be reached. Our website is nevadaemployers.org, and my local number is 702-329-0664. But any of our staff at NAE is available to assist. But we're pretty easy to find and happy to help. We're trying to take the fear out of HR. That's the whole point. A lot of people get scared. Oh, policies, procedures, HR, we're the police.
Right.
But we're really not. At least I will say, the good ones aren't. We're here. We walk that fine line between protecting the company from itself and protecting the people in the company, and it all becomes a nice synchronicity.
Absolutely, and I would like to see HR departments across at least our country having these conversations and really working on this, because I think it's long overdue. Because the 3-day maximum is not enough.
No,
it's not enough. And as I have shared with you and told you multiple times, that I'm happy to talk with you about my thoughts on what people's experiences are in the work situation. And when I am talking with anybody, one of the things when I'm helping them with grief, I kind of say, what's the work situation like? Are you feeling supported? Maybe there's a way to communicate that the challenge is that employees, when they're in grief, they're in a position where they have to be their own advocate sometimes, and that is really, really tough. And so if there's something already there, or somebody on the HR staff that can hold their hand and walk them through the process, I think that would be a great thing for us to see in the future, developing in companies and all different sizes of companies. Because I agree, not every company is going to be able to have the identical bereavement structure, just because you can't.
Right.
You can't.
Right. But even in those situations, again, it's back to preparedness.
Yes.
Cross-training is helpful, and even in small mom and pop shops, you really need to be prepared that anybody could leave or need to be gone at any time. And the more prepared you are for that eventuality, the more successful you'll be when it happens.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, thank you so very, very much for being on the show today and for chatting. It's been eye-opening. I'm going to be watching this over and over again for all the different pieces that you recommended, and I'll be searching online for some different pieces, because I know that a lot of our viewers are going to have even more questions about this. So
absolutely. Well, I'm happy to help. If anyone has any questions, you can get to me through Robin or reach out to our association. We're all about that good workplace.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I
Yes.
appreciate it, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
And who
You as
knows,
well.
I may rope you into another show one of these days.
I would love it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.